And now to our discussion segment. Since assuming office on May 29, 2023, President Tinubu has implemented far-reaching reforms aimed at repositioning Nigeria's economy. Key among these are the removal of fuel subsidies and the floating of the Naira, policies that have significantly altered the economic landscape. According to the National Bureau of Statistics, Nigeria's GDP grew by 3.84% in fourth quarter 2024, up from 3.46% in third quarter 2023, indicating progress. However, inflation surged to a 28-year high of 34.6% in November 2024, and poverty levels rose to 46%. Today on the program, we will dissect these developments, evaluating the gains and challenges and the road ahead for Nigeria's economy. Our guest is Dr. Niyi Akinsiju. You're welcome to Business Express.
Thanks so much for having me.
Okay, beautiful. Well, let's begin let's go straight to it. President Tinubu's administration has prioritized infrastructure development as one of the key areas that he would like to focus on. Then the focus is on roads, rail, and energy. What impact have these efforts had on the economy? And are they sufficient to address Nigeria's infrastructure gap?
Yeah, well, I think it's ongoing from policies that we have continued to evaluate. The important thing is that there's a focus on bridging the infrastructure gap. Historically, we've had a deficit economy as it were because, of course, there had been little activations, around the economic space, especially in areas of logistics. Logistics had been responsible, for instance, for the limited impact we've had in agriculture because, of course, of the nexus between the farm gate and the city gate or the markets, as if you prefer that. You've also had issues with energy. It's historical. The earliest that we had, what sufficient power perhaps would be in the early days of the post-independence era, where the urban centers then were supplied with power, but of course even a larger percentage of rural areas at that time lacked sufficient supplies of power, electric power, and it had since, and that of course have had a multiplier effects on the economic activities and of course the momentum in the economy. We can go on and on. Is it education? We've had we thought we were going to drive education with the zeal, that characterized the independence era, and of course the immediate post-independence era. But again, over time, the character, the nature, the quality, and of course the numbers of people that have access to education, either at the very primary level to the tertiary level, had also been constrained. In fact, what even bothers me had been the access to funding, the grants, provided by the Universal Basic Education Fund, where states were expected to provide a certain percentage of funding, that was automatically available through the UBEC. And we've had close to 15 states at the latest, from latest data, that have not been able to access the grants. And the grant comes with little or no constraint in terms of interest rate or whatever. So it's a grant.
Now, let me touch on this. Short-time pain for long-term gain. The whole idea of the subsidy removal thing. And how would you assess the indicator so far? And does it actually worth it?
I think it's worth it. It's opportunity cost. The cost or the real costs of our pain, had been, what we have had to give up in terms of a cheaper petrol, for cheaper PMS, for possible gains in infrastructure that will, of course, help the economy, energize individuals' transaction in the economy. So Yeah, we have seen what the inflation rate had been, moving from 34.8% last year, November, to 34.4%. And then, of course, through January to the current one at 23.71, 23.71, we are seeing decline. However you want to put it, we are seeing some form of decline in pricing.
Doc, I must say that you must take rebasing into the picture, you know.
Well, you see, when you rebase, I also argue that when you rebase, it is actually an acknowledgement of elements and factors within the economic environment that had not been acknowledged and taken into consideration. So we are now, what it does mean is that we have enabled the data and, of course, create a substance out of the data that had been dormant before. Okay. So it's still, those data are still within our economy, and now that we have properly provided for them, we should also be able to orchestrate them, and that's what we are doing now.
Okay, just continue with your indicators. Tell us, besides inflation, which other aspect of the economy has actually witnessed some improvement with these?
Well, we are seeing less constraints in the supply side of foreign exchange. You know, pre-2023 May, there was a huge constraint in the inflow of foreign exchange, and that had manufacturers especially complaining. People who use services that are called invisible, those who want to pay for school fees, pay for medical services abroad and all that, are challenges, you know. And there was a huge corruption ecosystem surrounding those basic access to those basic services. Well, with of course the removal of fuel subsidy and the harmonization of the foreign exchange market, now you just need to walk through your bank or your BDC. You have access. Yes, the cost, the pricing of transaction had increased, but in truth, it is also a reflection of the value of our economy, as it were. So if the economy continue to improve, as we are seeing, perhaps you have seen what Financial Times wrote about us, I think today or yesterday, talking about the fact that, yes, Nigeria had these challenges, you know, of a country of leadership that were only interested in cornering the assets of the collective assets of the country. But now with this new administration, we have actually turned the corner, and that's coming from a critical voice like the Financial Times. And
now, would you say the FX reforms, you know, has improved somehow investor confidence?
Yes. Well, you can measure that by the inflow. You know, you can also measure that by the competitiveness of the currency, of our currency. In multiple ways, we have now seen the strength of Naira produced goods and services. Now there are now records of supplies of products produced in Nigeria, you know, in the West African region, and even abroad, you know, because we have our Naira now has a competitive difference between the local currency and other currencies. And so our products have become cheaper and competitive across the West African, and of course to an extension into the larger continent. You know, so that is one of the gains of the foreign exchange administration. I mean, foreign exchange reforms. Another gain is that Nigerians in diaspora are willing to send in money, you know, because they are getting value for their money. It is real value now. You know, it is not just that the transaction costs are being suppressed using Federation account money, but now the market allows for value. So when you send your money back home, you get real value for it. And of course, in the last 1 year alone, the diaspora funding rose to close to 5 billion, from I think a low of 2 point something billion in 2023. So it shows remittance. And if remittances are coming in, if exporters that used to divert their earnings abroad, find a way of dodging whatever they earn, their income revenue, wherever they are taking their products before, are now willingly, returning, repatriating revenues they earned, income they earned. And that is also making our own reserve quite robust. Because the important thing, for Forex is access. When you need it, how you need it, it's available without stress. And that helps the manufacturing sector. It also helps the service sector and, of course, even the invisible sectors.
Okay, with all these assessments that you've made, actually, would you say we're actually on the right path towards achieving the $1 trillion economy?
Yeah, because now the economy is freer. We used to constrain the economy before, suppressing pricings. And because the model then was for the state to control. It was a control economy. The state determined the price of critical products like PMS, like foreign exchange, and because of that, the economy was constrained. There was no activities, The momentum the economy could gather was to the extent of how the government got more earnings, from our primary crude oil products. But now, even now, critics of the economy are talking about a diversified economy in the real sense of it. Actually, we've always had a diversified economy, but now we are talking about value to the diversified economy. So there was a time, when President Trump started this issue around tariffs and all that, and there was this fear that it will impact the Nigerian economy. Some of us said no, because the Nigerian economy itself is growing its own resilience. You see more people coming into the space, and of course we've had the good fortune of having private sector investments in the crude oil refining segment of the economy.
Okay, Doc, just a quick one, because we are running out of time. Now, how did we do in terms of revenue and fiscal discipline within these 2 years of this administration?
So far,
just briefly.
So far, we can't do that evaluation yet, because we need to have data. We have to establish that with data. But so far, so good. At least, budget performance that is returning more than 70% for capital, and close to 100% for recurrent. If there's also a consciousness of plugging leakages and all that, by government. So because of that consciousness, I believe, that the government has policies, to be disciplined, transparent in the management of revenue.
Thank you very much, Dr. Niyi Akinsiju.
A pleasure as always. Thanks so much.